everybody, and welcome to another one of our design boardrooms. If for some reason my photo, my picture right there is in your way, you can just move me around. We're so glad you could join us. We love doing the design boardroom, and Joanne's been doing them the last couple months we've been doing it together, and she's done the last one. But this was a really requested topic. We ask you guys every month to if there's anything you want to know, if you're struggling with or want a refresher on. And reading comps and staging hacks was one of the popular requests that we had. So we thought, okay, let's just delve into it and go a little bit deeper into it. So what is smart staging? So it is about aligning our stagings, our efforts to make these homes look amazing and sell quicker, but we also want to be smart about it and look at actual market data. We're going to talk about staging hacks for faster results. And who doesn't want to hack? If we can come up with something that makes it more efficient and quicker, that's the way we want to do it. How to work with agents. And sometimes this boils down to just posing the questions and developing those relationships. Hey, let's go have some coffee. Tell me about the kind of clients and listings that you're getting and what I might can do to help you. Some of my best relationships with agents have been just like that, or sometimes the seller had heard about me. And if you're new, that may not be a possibility yet. Hopefully, you've got a website. And if not, reach out and we'll give you some tips about how to start there. But the other thing that we're going to talk about tonight is motivating the sellers to take action. We can be amazing stagers and come up with great ideas, maybe even sometimes too many, and that paralyzes that seller to do anything like, oh my gosh, this list is too long. But we want to be effective in the fact that not only do we recognize what needs to be done, but we also want to be able to motivate that seller to take action, as well as some agents. And you probably, if you have been doing staging a while, know a few agents that are a little bit slower to embrace staging. So we want to be able to make sure that we have done our part to educate our agents as well as our sellers. That's probably somebody calling me right now wanting me to stage their house. I'm going to turn that off. Thank you. And then we're going to talk about the Goldilocks staging zone. And this really did help me educate clients too in a very approachable, non-intimidating way. And we've got some smart staging handouts for you tonight. So hopefully you guys have been on these in the past, so you know a little bit about me. I'm not going to go and read every little thing, but I've been doing staging and decorating and design work for over 22 years, a long time. So long I can hardly keep up anymore. I am the executive director of the Decorating and Staging Academy. We are very practical in how we want to educate and make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time. And I always put this about award winning in there, not to necessarily brag, but to let you know that it is so important for you to just put yourself out there and enter a contest. We have one at the Decorating and Staging Academy every year. We've got all kinds of categories. It's on our site. And if you haven't been to our site recently, we have a whole new site. It's probably why I have a few more gray hair. But so we want you to just take advantage of this education and put yourself out there. So let's just hit it. I would like for you to take a minute right before we start. And if you will let me know where you live, I just think that is so important. If you'll just put it, remember, we'll have to put it in that Q&A. And that way I can see, and I want to know, because when we talk about staging and comps and how you can be the most effective stager, it's good to know where you're from because every one of our areas could be very different how we stage these properties. So if you'll take just 2 seconds and let me know where you live, and while you're at it, why don't you also tell me if you are staging only or staging and decorating, or if you're just starting out? I would love to know. I see a few friendly names, faces on here. I'm so glad you're joining me, and some new ones tonight. Okay, Sharon's in Ponte Vedra, Florida. Yay. I'm very familiar with Ponte Vedra. That is where I started my business, Sharon, and we kind of, I think, talked about that. All right. Betsy, I know, is in North Carolina. We've got Philadelphia. We've got Tampa, lived there too. Yeah, I probably could live in two. I've lived in two-thirds of these places. You guys might pop up here. Um, okay, Seattle. All right. So as we're talking tonight, where you live and where you are staging makes a difference. So let me go back one second. I got to close this up so I can see. So the reason that we care about comps tonight is because it really does help us understand and tailor our staging to certain price points. What I've got to stage in Scottsdale, Arizona may be totally different than what I would have staged in the Panhandle in Florida. So the price point's going to make a difference. The area is going to make a difference. And our buyers that are looking, anybody that is potential. And I have realized in certain areas, and you guys can weigh in if this applies to you, the buyers can be as diverse, from very relaxed and casual to wanting very more luxury. Some areas are much more narrow in what the buyers are looking for. But this is why we care about comps, because this price is going to let us know what these buyers are going to be expecting. I used to always say, if you're going to price it at the highest end of the market, and keep in mind, as stagers, we're not coming up with the price. I always like, don't touch that. I let that be my real estate agent, and they don't appreciate it if you try and get in there and tell the homeowner how to price it. But some of you may do both. You may be real estate agents that offer staging, or you're thinking about getting into it. But that price will set an expectation. If you're pricing at this high end, then buyers are not expecting to do anything. They don't want to lift a finger. They want that move in ready. If it is a lower price point and you're pricing it aggressively to move it quickly, they might be a little bit more open to, painting or changing the carpet. I was going to say about 10 years ago, I thought it kind of flipped a little bit because of the market itself. And nobody wanted to lift a finger to do anything. And that's when staging even became more important, because we were encouraging our sellers to do all the steps, all the things that these potential buyers would have been looking at these houses and going, oh my gosh, I got to find a painter. So if you were taking care of that beforehand, that already took care of an objection. The other thing that we're looking at on our comps is the style. This will give us a good indication of what's going to appeal to the buyers. And the days on market they really give us a success matrix. I was looking at houses this weekend. I looked at 6 houses, and the days on the market of the highest days on the market was 36. Everything had been on 6 days, 3 days. So, and I had a kind of broad search of what I wanted. So we love to have anything that can give us a clue of what can be a success matrix for us. So it's going to reflect buyers' expectations. And those days on market, the design styles will give us clues, because we're not going to come in and bring a specific style. If we see the houses that had very few days on market that sold very quickly, if they have a totally different style, and those are the ones that are moving. So I love this example. So let's say it's a $300,000 home in a specific neighborhood, had very neutral walls, modern accents, and light staging, not overstaging, and it sold in 5 days. That's going to give us an indication of what was super popular for that home. And then you will see if that translates to the other listings that sold quickly. So, by reading the market like a pro, you automatically have great insight. And I love having relationships with these agents because they give me information that I may not know. I mean, I'm not reading comps every day, that's their job. So, I want to have some agent insight. Now, you also have to keep in mind if it's a very new agent, if it's a seasoned agent, but they are a great resource for us. And we also want to notice any consistent factors in those solds, like I said, and we're not talking Pinterest. I have recently, and I don't know what is in the water, but I have had a couple sellers and actually design clients that are like, I saw this is the most popular color on Pinterest to paint your house. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't work. It's great that it's on Pinterest and it's great that it may be one of Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams' top whatever colors. But if it doesn't coordinate with these architectural details and features and the wood floor, then it's going to be working against you. So that's where you get to sell yourself during these consultations about how you know how to pick out that color better than Pinterest. Um, we're also going to pull those design clues like I talked about. And then also you have access to RESA, the Real Estate Staging Association, and IHOS staging reports. Every year they ask us all to give them information. And that is a great way to look at houses, how quickly they sold, but you're still going to have to rely on the area that you live in. So I just pulled one of the MLS. And again, if you're ever going to use this, always remember not to put, the actual address in here. But I did not use the one I actually had circled all over because it was so messy. But I took a second and every house that I went to, I am circling how many days it's been on the market, if it had a price reduction, and I wanted to know any special features that they may have had. If anything is selling in under 14 days, and again, this may alter a little bit with your area, that is usually a home that you can look at the photos and tell if it has been staged. I also want us to kind of go back and look at those that sold in the 3 months and the 6 month time frame based on our zip codes. That will just give us an indication of if the average is homes are selling, let's say in 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you have your house that you've now been hired to stage has been on the market for 6 months. It's also one of the great selling features when you are talking to that seller about why staging is going to be so important. It is that strategic marketing tool for you. So here's just a compiled, I have fixed this 3 times. It just must be when I transferred this over from Canva. Here is a way to look at the MLS, all the fields that we might want to focus on. And the price, what basically what's it telling you? It's telling you what the asking price was versus the actual, why it mattered for staging. It helps determine the market strength and buyer expectation. I'm not going to read every one of these, but I want you to look at the days on the market like we just talked about. Photos are so important. Sometimes you can even have an amazing staging and the photographer did not do his best, or they're not great at shooting interiors. And that's why it's really good for you to even say, I can't tell how many times I've called an agent and said, okay, we've got to retake these because just the photographs in general are depressing. Or let's say staging happened and they had already taken the photos. I always say you have to come back and retake them because, as we all know, everybody is looking online before they're making an appointment. You also want to know when the house was built because if that house is built, let's say 20 something years ago, and you get to say not only has it been remodeled, and you will list in that, remember how I had that one circled on the MLS sheet about all the features of that house, you will also be able to say that it has been staged professionally. And some agents don't know to necessarily include that, but that's where you will remind her or him. Square footage, the number of bedrooms, features, If every one of the competition that you are up against has a marble or a quartz-sized countertop and your home still has a laminate, that's going to have to be discussed. And it does make a big difference in what a potential buyer is looking at. Okay, so here's a way to track the 5 trends that will be showing up in our MLS. First one is wall color. Is it a neutral? Is it bold? Is it trendy? Are we still focusing on gray? Flooring. In fact, I'll give you a really good example. One of the houses that I went into this week had a hand scraped floor. Now, I have not seen any hand scraped floor in Colorado in the areas that I have been looking. And again, that's super important, the neighborhoods that I've been. But hand scraped floors were so popular in Park City. So also being able to discuss, hey, Mr. and Miss Agent, has that come up when you've had any of the showings? Do people have an objection to hand scraped? Because the first thing that happened was I did notice there was dirt in some of the crevices. Kitchen finishes, light fixtures, you know, a statement light fixture or chandelier is not expensive. There are so many luxury looking, if that is the price point of your home, but there's also updated ones that you can get very reasonably, whether it's Wayfair, Amazon, Home Depot, Lowe's. I mean, Lowe's has some really good ones. And then looking at the style, it's a great way to see, did they bring in some modern accessories? Does it feel overstaged or lived in? And if anybody has a question while I'm going, just feel free to kind of interrupt me here. Um, and this is where too, in fact, I see Stephanie on here, and Stephanie has built a great business working with builders. And if you're staging a builder's model home or a spec home, that is where you're really going to have to make some really sound decisions on this list. Knowing what's happening, knowing what's been selling, and knowing how to make the most with their budget. It's those darn budgets every time, guys. Okay, so let's talk about Goldilocks staging. Every time I bring this up with a homeowner, especially, when you feel there's a little bit of pushback, I will say, okay, let's think about, Goldilocks staging. And everybody knows what that means. So there's sometimes too much. Before you've actually touched it, they may have too much in here. And this is where your talking points are so important. It could be if you're, and I do always, and you have heard this before if you've been on any of our webinars, I started out in advertising and I used to it was such a shocker to me when if somebody could afford a full page ad or any kind of print media, it's like the tendency is you just want to put too much in there. Okay, this was a super expensive um, uh, console table that I got from a really high-end store. I mean, it could be high-end things, but if there's too much to take in, you walk away and you don't remember the size of the space. And you're selling 3 main things: the square footage, that vertical and horizontal, the views, and any architectural details, because architectural details and views pretty much, and square footage represent value. You paid extra for that square footage. You paid extra to have that view on the golf course or wherever it might be. So it's very important not to have so much in stagings that, or even before it gets staged, that it is confused. Then there's the not enough. It's just not right. And that's where you're using, and if I had $1 for every time I said, Miss Homeowner, only 10% of the population can visualize. We have to spell this out for them that this room is a perfect example. In the middle, we need to show them that it's important. They want to seat, let's say, minimum of 8 people. You could put 2 sofas, you could put a sectional, you could put two sets of matching chairs. But if we don't show them that they can meet that requirement, then they're going to walk away and not be able to do it themselves. Very few people can visualize that. And then the just right. And that is where and you guys know my homeowners always marry. Hopefully, let's see, I don't have any Marys on tonight because it confuses everything. So I'm always saying, Mary, we want it to be just right because we want to showcase these big selling features that I just talked about. And the way we're going to do that is by honoring all the vertical space that we have, by not overcrowding it, and also by using some of the tricks of the trade that we know as home stagers, by being able to move your eye over to this gorgeous view, or be able to make your client, this potential buyer, see the vertical space. I will say, of the 5 homes that I went in this weekend, I'm going to say a good 4 missed so many opportunities of putting artwork over a bed by putting it in that power zone. I even said to the agent, what is the deal with this? I don't remember noticing that in other tour of homes that I had been on before. But that is your opportunity to not only sell yourself because you know how to stage a house properly to sell these features, but to motivate them to trust you and to take action. Okay, so let's talk about what it really is. It is about aligning the style with the price. You don't want the high end of the market if the house is not priced at the high end of the market. You don't want it too basic. I mean, I don't want basic, even if it is a smaller price point house, because you can make some very interesting selections and placement opportunities by doing something non-basic. And you don't want the reputation of also, oh, I've seen that inventory over and over again. Or I saw that at, a Restore last week. I'm not knocking Restore at all, but I'm just saying you want to make sure that you don't kind of dilute your opportunity to make even the smaller price points houses stand out. And tailor it to the buyer's income. Now, they don't know how much you spent on that, but I always give the example. We got the opportunity to decorate a Habitat for Humanity, the entire house. And as we are discussing a group of stagers what to put in that house, it was interesting, just a little bit of the straddling of the fence about we wanted to make it amazing, but we also needed to honor the price point of the buyers, the income of the buyers, because we wanted everybody to be encouraged and motivated. And this is what I can do by simply shopping smartly. You want to think about their lifestyle. If you're in an area where they have a lot of children, that playroom doesn't need to be necessarily a pool table if you need to have that kid's playroom, and you can do that. So, I mean, there's so many cute ideas right now. And what are the buyer's expectations? If they are two working parents, then they don't have time to go and paint out the space. We're not going to assume that they do. So also we want to think about too much. Now, too much can also be too much of a particular style. Um, I swear if I saw one more, farmhouse, shiplap, I was going to scream. And it didn't even fit, in a lot of the areas. It would be, the sign, eggs for 5 cents or something. And it would be a house that had a super more traditional, elegant kind of feel from the outside, which is what that potential buyer is looking for. You didn't necessarily want to see that quilt, even though that color of that chair is really pretty. Um, Mid-century modern. I mean, that mid-century modern was really pretty, but even mission style furniture, you didn't have just one chair that had that mission style. It was the whole room. And if that's not, which was not my style for my own personal house, but you have to be careful to have too much of a particular style, as well as too much stuff, too many of these tchotchke signs everywhere. And then the not enough. And I put this picture in here again because some of those styles, like the mid-century modern, were very minimal. And if it's not enough for what your comps are indicating, and you're looking at these photos, then you're going to have to make some wise decisions to bring in a few more elements, some more warmth pieces. We don't need to the furniture to take up all the square footage, but we need to make sure we're honoring what you're seeing and what you're learning from the comps. This is my pet peeve when everything is on just on that function zone. And if you've had any of our classes, we talk about those three zones for putting and making sure they're staged properly as well as designed properly. So when you have nothing more but on the bottom at this point where you're walking, sitting, sleeping, that kind of thing, you miss this golden opportunity to be able to raise the roof, so to speak, to give that vertical square footage. So we don't want you to miss that. And here's another one. There were so many photos that I could have popped in here for the bottom heavy rooms. So you want to have just right. Now, let's look at this middle one for just a minute. I love the fact that this color is walked up into the wall. We've just raised it up versus having nothing over the toilet. This just made a big impact and gave some interest, made this warmer. Just having a detailed on the ceiling, I mean, that's where you're going to have to really be smart about it. Now, I always like a rug under the bed, especially if we have hardwood floors, but think about the practicality, the function of it. If you're getting out of bed, are your feet touching the floor? Now, they could have just put this rug right under these chairs, but as you can see, that is not underneath it. So this is like that magic carpet ride, I refer to it as. But you want to have just the right amount. The bedding is nice and warm, and we've got some detailed. We did give a little interest here, some lighting, coordinated color. That all works great. Even the flooring, everything is working. It's just you need to be really smart about how to use rugs. Okay, and then this one on the right, get myself out of the way so you can see it. I love this. This is just has a lot of texture and warmth. It's got the right height for where we can just, a potential buyer could sit down and they could put their beverage out to the side. They're probably not drinking as they're touring homes, but it's a perfectly laid out space for encouraging you to sit down and make an offer. So the just right sellers, I love when I get a seller that falls into the just right category. They're open to staging suggestions. And thankfully at this point, most people have seen and know that staging works. You want to have somebody that is marketing savvy, that they're willing to show their house. They're going to let you in when you need to get in there to start, taking photos, if they want you to do a little social media, sometimes you are willing to offer that. They're financially focused. They don't get attached to the house. They want to be able to move on, put the money in the bank. And they're also prepared to invest some in you, in staging. What if you're suggesting switching out some colors or making those necessary repairs before it goes on the market? They're already open to, oh yeah, I know I need to do that. I know that is very specific to when my daughter lived in that room kind of thing. So they don't get attached to the home. Those are the just right sellers. And I don't think I have it in here, but even having the just right agent, the agent that promotes staging, that uses you for all of their listings, knows how to educate that seller. Hey, listen, I don't do the staging. I know how to market your house, and I'm going to connect with other agents and I'm going to push your house. But I bring in a professional stager and she does her thing and it works every time. So you really do want to find those agents and don't be surprised if you have to kind of educate them on what you bring to the table. And it is a team effort. Okay, so and there's a couple of these in here, handouts like this. Just so for easy reference, if you want them, just reach out to me or Stephanie, our social media guru, will also put them on Instagram. You just have to look for that. That'll probably be in a couple of days. So here's just some examples of price ranges of homes. And just as a reminder, depending on where you live, this $1 million could be the high, kind of the high end and a luxury in some markets. It could be what, a middle of the range or lower middle in other markets. So be very open to, even though this is a million, that may be your market may be a little bit different. And when I teach the luxury home staging, it's pretty much you indicate luxury and mid-range by the percentage of the price points that are on the market. So I don't care what price point it is, you want it clean and functional. I have been in houses and I'm like, oh my gosh, that really pretty, those two chairs are sitting in front of the fireplace and they're going to go up in flames if you lit the fireplace. So it has to be functional no matter what price point it is. Move-in ready is always the goal. But if, like I said, when we were talking about, if there's some slight or easy to fix things, maybe, but why not just go ahead and have your seller fix them? Um, Always love some quality bedding and linens. You can get those super economical right now, but you can see that the luxury finishes and furnishings will be more emphasized when you get down to this higher price point. So, and if anybody has a question about this, I'll leave this up just a minute before I flip to the next one, and I'll make sure we don't have any questions right now. Okay. Okay, good. Patricia's in the DC area. And I would assume, Patricia, and just be text that. I mean, what kind of style do you think you're seeing more in that Alexandria, Virginia, DC area? In fact, why not everybody just take a minute and just pop that in there for me so I can see it. And if you feel like you have a specific style, it may be very transitional and not as pigeonholed as some areas. Okay, we've got a couple of responses right here already. Um, okay. Okay, keep typing those in there for me. Okay, so let's talk about a few hacks. Ways to increase that visual square footage, that visual space. This is a very tall picture. You could not even get it into the back of the truck. And it filled the space. It lifted up the room. It was a super tall ceiling, 2-story, vaulted. But the frame of this was like a whitewash. It just disappeared. So by putting the black trim around it, which went with, as you can see, the chandelier right here, and these were Amazon shades. And I will admit, when we got those in the mail and you had to put them all together, I knew that you were going to have to put them together. I guess what I didn't realize was there were a lot of instructions and a lot of little screws, but having this influence of black, which repeated that color and the right size piece of art, it made a huge difference in raising the vertical square footage, as opposed to this one, which you can see is going to kind of be brought down because there's nothing to lift our eye. So here's your overall tips for how to increase the square footage. And you're going to think north, south, east, and west. Placement is either going to increase the space or decrease it. You miss that opportunity. Selling feature enhancement. If you've got this amazing fireplace with this awesome new stone, and there is nothing that is going to bring my eye over to it, or there's, let's say, nothing on the mantle to make me get there, then you've missed that opportunity. Your eye will track around the room, and it usually will either go to the same color or it will go to the biggest contrast. So, in fact, I think I did. Just wait a minute, I'm going to show you an example. That's like with MLS photos with rugs. I will always take up rugs 9 times out of 10 because all it does is cut that gorgeous hardwood floor or tile. It just chops it in half. And I am selling that more than I am selling this really cute rug they got. The other thing that is a big contrast and that will pause if you're looking at it. And if you guys haven't, this has been one of my pet peeves, but when you look at an MLS photo and it has a fireplace and that fireplace has been burnt a couple times and it has that soot in the back, it's not that pretty, let's say, herringbone brick that you had to start with. It's just soot and it's a contrast. I do always have my homeowners either clean it, scrub it, or they paint the whole inside high heat black because then it's not a distraction. I want to get to that really pretty stone on top of the fireplace. You also can use mirrors, lighting, and color to expand the space. Now, I am not and never have been, never will be, well, there's only been maybe one, mirrors over mantles. All it does is reflect the ceiling fan. So place your mirrors strategically where they're going to enhance the space, not because it has a really pretty frame and it's what you have left and let's just put it over the mantle. So this is Lucy Terhune. Lucy does amazing work. And this was a really good example how in bringing in an up-to-date chandelier and this mirror place, giving some reflection. I wanted you to see that. And simple, but yet very strategically placed staging. And this is a really pretty room for not being so overdone, even overdone with a style. So check out Lucy. They bungalow home stagers. They do great, great things. I have put a couple in hers in here to showcase for you. So number two, this second hack is using color, having color with purpose. Perfect example, even the wood tone of the coffee table is now it's grabbing the same hue of these pillows on the sofa, getting up now into this higher zone. Now my eye is jumping across the room and I see this repeat of color. That is now gone east-west and now it's gone north and south to make this space feel bigger and at the same time a cozy effect, not over lived in. I'm not having to see somebody's family photos, but using that color purposely. And don't forget that the wood floors and these wood elements that are existing need to be considered. If it's overload of, let's say, that gray color, and then all of a sudden you bring in colors that are more browns and whatever, we haven't honored what's been existing in the space. Okay, so we want to highlight the architectural features and the ones that are staying in the space. They're not going to need to change this very heavy black tile on their fireplace. So let's make sure that we move that color around the room. And we now have used it and placed it in all three zones. But if you can't get it in three, at least get it in that bottom, that function, and that middle. But it's so important to be able to respect those existing elements that are not changing. Black, I think, always has an on-trend effect. But as we all know, we've gone from the grays to more that grayish, and then now we're getting even warmer, kind of that mushroom color, and which is what you are seeing represented in their wood features in here. Very small mantle, but I mean, that's those things that it's good to train your eye, even if that's something that isn't going to be able to be changed in the staging, but you have control out of a lot of things that you can. Eliminate those tasks that are going to be expensive for our buyer. And the other beauty besides getting fresh paint in there, besides it looks on trend, it is not a task for the buyer, but it smells clean. It smells really good. And like it's a new paint. New paint, new carpet always smells good. And let me just talk about this right now. It may, I think it's coming up too, but be really conscious of the smells that you put in the house. I bought an older home, like 23 years old in Scottsdale. And I mean, just that, it just wasn't lived in that much. So I bought one of those Pures and I can schedule when I want it to put a volcano and or a linen smell in the space. But one of the houses that I went into this week, it had right at the foyer, the plug in, and it was just hits you in the face. And you automatically think, what are we covering up? Or I don't like that smell. It was not a very user-friendly smell. I just popped this in here because this is a couple things I want to point out. Um, Miss this opportunity. This is a low ceiling for this is a guest room, a low ceiling, pretty furnishings in here, but it felt like we could do better. So one of the iterations of this room was a really pretty cactus, black and white, gray photo that was over the bed. And then I thought, why, how, and handy homeowner, let's do 1x2s. This back wall was 2 shades darker. And again, you're making sure you're putting that color in there, looking at those samples different times of the day. But by putting this going into the ceiling and stopping it randomly, I knew that it was going to lift the ceiling and it, also was going to give a unique feature at a very low price point. I had gotten these pendants from Anthropologie Outlet. Y'all check and see if you have an Anthropologie Outlet store near you because they're worth driving to. Hand blown gray, white. They're all they're both irregular shape. But as you can see, it's just kind of brought the room in a little bit too. I am telling the homeowners I want to add 2 tall, 2/3 of the space mirrors. We don't want to put one little photo in this case. And could not visualize it. Again, we're back to the can't visualize thing, which is, I mean, it's good for you to even let yourself see things sometimes. I literally just went to chat, and you've got a lot of AI opportunities. I took this photo and I said, please add 2 full-length mirrors filling 2/3 of the space on the left and right above each nightstand and trimmed in black. And this was the picture. Then I show the homeowner, and it's like, oh, yeah, that is like sexy. I want that. Yeah. But it also reflected and made the room not only the square footage increase left and right and top to bottom. And these are from Walmart. Okay, hack number 3. These are three rooms that are money rooms. It's funny. A lot of times the foyer would come up as a money room, and it mainly because it's that first impression. But let's talk about it in terms of people what they care about the most. Kitchens, 100%. Don't even need to explain it. Having these quality elements and finishes in here. Bedrooms, again, having a piece of art over the bed. This was in our house. I think it was out, maybe it was Pottery Barn, still sold. And it did a great job of lifting the space, and it was left to right, the right size. And primary bathrooms. So this is where you're going to get emotional connections. Now, this is a room, this is a Park City piece of art, and on this other wall was too. But there was a little bit of emotional connection because of where you were. Perceived value, um, great pieces of art. That art did have a little value to it, but sometimes you can have pieces of art that look of more value than they could be. We've talked about, these rooms are so important because they are costly to change rooms. Kitchen countertops, they cost. It is also the 3 biggest rooms that get the comparison, the most comparison. I liked kitchen number 1 in that house better than the kitchen in all the others. Okay. Oh, I loved that master bathroom, that primary bathroom. Oh, that tile was really pretty. Okay, I would give that the higher score. So it really is, these are the 3 rooms that are going to be compared the most. And can you come up with some cost-effective changes? I would always say, listen, there's no reason we can't paint this bedroom. It clashes with the bed, the bedding, la, la, la. So I have painters that I consider all different levels of cost. One that I call the cheap and cheerful, And the other one is like my 5 star. They're going to be more expensive. They're not going to have to touch up anything. Cheap and cheerful guy may have to come back and do touch up. But if budget's the issue, I'd rather us have, I've explained it to them from a staging standpoint that, hey, let's get it painted. Just know that we may have to have him come back and touch up so they know. Okay, and let me make sure nobody has a question. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so here's some tips, hacks for the kitchen. I really encourage you to take an afternoon and go to a kitchen design showroom. Just I went to recently one, and that's where I got a bunch of photos. I think handles are one of the most effective ways to elevate any kitchen and even whatever price point it is on. But Amazon has some really good handles too. But knowing what is out there, knowing what looks expensive, I also wanted to put this in here to remind me to tell you that I love these big handles in kitchens, in my own kitchen. And I had wimpy handles. I couldn't stand it. Just couldn't stand it. So um, I I thought, oh, is it going to look tacky if I have the back plate? And it really doesn't. So it's also an option for you to consider looking at back plates if that allows you to bring that kitchen, bring in the hardware. So let's talk about one of the rules of three. So if you have one large counter, that's where we're recommending three, the rule of three. So you can have the tray and let's say a cookbook and a plant, but three things on the one element on that large counter because it's so tempting, like to have more than one. Make sure that you have something on the island or the breakfast vignette. Napkins are good for texture, but just really stand back and look at the space. If you want to put a placemat with a really cute napkin, but then stand back and make sure it doesn't visually start to clutter the space. Talked about the hardware and under cabinet lighting. Now don't have to have, the electrician come in. You can have pendants. You can take those can lights and put your pendants in there, and that makes a huge impact. And when you're doing your staging report, excuse me, I have that on me. When you're doing your staging report, I always list everything that I would like for them to do that I think is going to sell the home. If it's something, let's say, like let's add under cabinet lighting, here's my suggestion. Here's my solution about how to do it. And I let you know how I prioritize it. Is it, hey, we have to declutter. We have to take down Junior's pictures, whatever. Those are items you got to do it. But some of these things I know would add an updated, more value added decision. So I also give them the resource about how to do it. So primary bedrooms, we want to have crisp linens, starch. You can iron the bedding. I have one of those cordless irons. So it's like you're not having to take everything off and try and, work that out. Also, you can pop them in the dryer with a wet bath cloth, and that'll take a lot of the wrinkles out. 2 to 3 layers of pillows, no more than. Nightstands limit 1 to 2 accessories. And if you have symmetry for your nightstands, that just gives a balance. And it also works for you for enhancing the space. Okay, so primary bathrooms. If you have a shower curtain in there, I want you to stand back and say, can I put a tall drapery panel? I just did this in my own house. And they were so, I mean, I got if you need a resource, let me know. I'll get it for you. They were so inexpensive. They were 129 inches long. I got the majority of the wrinkles out, but I still needed to get those pleats back in. And I just did a chip clip a couple places strategically and left it for a day, and it got the pleats right back in. Um, Fresh linens. You can't go wrong with white towels. Even Walmart has some really good ones. And then I have over the years started having a linen spray. You could use lavender if you want, but I like linen and cotton. And I just miss the towels. And again, these are rooms that are homes that are basically vacant. They're not there all the time. If not, then you have to empower them to do this. New loofahs, don't use an old one, specialty soaps, just those little touches that, elevate it. Okay, so hack number 4 is smart staging styles. You have to recognize and be consistent with whatever the style is of your area. If it's outside, you're not going to expect to see the quilt with the red chair in this room, in this home. So be sure and respect that. Here's just some really good reminders for us. You can go neutral, but you don't need to be boring. And one of the ways to eliminate the boring with neutrals is to make sure you have textures in your throws or your pillows. You can create simple, balanced vignettes that are very interesting. They're not over the top. You don't have to stage every little nook and cranny in that space. But when you're thinking about these vignettes or even your staging in your room, think about organic, functional, and that personal feeling, but not the personality of the seller. Furniture should be spacious, but not overstuffed. I do always ask my homeowners when we're buying chairs or sofas, okay, what do we plan to do with this when we're done? And if when the house sells and it's like, I'm probably going to donate it, or they might want to buy it with the house, I'll offer that as an incentive. Then I don't care if it's comfortable. I just want it to look on trend. I want it to go with the style, and I want it to look good. So I'm not really worried about the comfort, but I do, that's where, don't forget to ask. Use large neutral artwork that could be abstract, botanical, those landscaping. I love because it gives that depth. You can see through it. Layer your lighting because that gives you that ambiance, that kind of personal feel. Bring life in with greenery. So many times I would hear stagers say, oh, I don't want to use, fake plants. You absolutely can, especially if it's a vacant house, but just make sure it's a plant that you would see in that area and that it is a good fake. You almost can't tell if it's real or not. Function for that lifestyle, and the home has to be spotless. So here's just a few organic examples. This may not be a particular buyer style, but it's not so in your face that it's going to distract them or cause them I don't like that pillow. They're looking at the big picture. And here's just another way to bring some of that organic feel up, even with the plant, but just, it's a modern, very modern space, but I want you to see the organic feel of the wood. Okay, hack number 5, subtraction is a big add. So I tried to take this photo. It looks a little bit, I just thought this was a good example. It didn't look terrible to start with, although there is a knife block. There's 2 sets of salt and pepper shakers. There's the charger. I think that was a bag of chips. There was one long little thing to hook a remote, garage remote. There was a devotional book over here. So it's just showing very simple being able to declutter, subtract some of the things that would take away. And then stand back and say, gosh, do I still need to take away the eat sign? Or does that help lift it? Or because it's got gorgeous backsplash, but then stand back and look at your photos because photos are so good for also letting homeowners see some of their things they need to improve upon. I had one homeowner and we were doing a Zoom call and I said, okay, we definitely have to talk about painting. He goes, it doesn't need painting. That is a really pretty color. So by the time I popped up the photo that I had taken, you could see that the piece of art that they had over the door, it almost looked like I won't say a dirt ring, but it more was, I think. Anyway, so pictures can help you as well as it can help you help them. So these are the things to subtract: clutter, extra items, even expensive items. How many times have we had a homeowner say, oh my gosh, I spent a fortune on those drapes. I don't want to take them down. If you can work around and take down the top treatment, a couple panels on the side and the shears, and it still frame The window, hey, that's a workaround. But even expensive items need to come down if it's too many things in the space. If it's not the market that you're appealing to or the style of the home, if it conflicts with the home style, off scale or even very unique items. In fact, we were just talking recently about a seller who had gorgeous antiques, but it is not the style of the home or the potential buyer. Now, this one I just popped, this is on the market right now. This is $3 million. And you need I say more? I don't even think I need to say more. But this is why you pick up rugs. This floor is a really pretty tile floor. I can't tell if that's an aquarium or not, but this was a showcase home in one of the high-end luxury magazines that you send out often. But it is job security when you think about that this is $3 million. So let's recap. We want to make sure that we are aligning our staging with the price points of the home. We want to make sure that we understand and know what's happening in the market and with the comps. And that's where if you've got a great resource with an agent, then you're going to rely on them. But you also need to know how to pull them and look at them. Those smart staging hacks that we talked about. Educate your seller with using the Goldilocks zone, staging zone. Prioritize so that, our homeowners don't do anything. We always say a confused mind does nothing. So we want to make it super easy for them to understand why it's important and how to solve it. And then if you want any of the handouts that have been or charts that have been popped in, just let me know. And then also check out the social media. And thank you for joining me tonight. And if you're not following us on Instagram, Facebook, all that, and some of our groups, please do. And then at the same time, I was going to let you know that we're going to start throwing up just randomly a hack or two during the week on social media. Sometimes it'll be staging, sometimes it'll be decorating or design or color. So we would love for you to start following us if you're not. And let me see if we have any questions before. Okay, let's see. Okay, you are so welcome. Yeah, so one of the things that I always do encourage people just for a resource is check out your hotel inventory. If you have one of those located in your area, and again, depending on the area, mine in Park City had amazing stuff. In fact, there is a video of one of the $500 lamps that I got for like 40. So check out some of those resources. Let me know if you have any questions or if you just want to run by a staging project with me. I am happy to help you. And thank you guys so much for joining me.